Okay, so this is Nicole Badgley, and she has worked in holistic therapy for how long?
Well, I've worked in holistic therapy since, like with my master's degree, since 2013.
Wow.
But I worked before that with my bachelor's degree in holistic therapy since 2009 and 10. And then I worked in holistic therapy for myself and my family before that. So depends on like what criteria you're looking for, but
Right. Okay. So what is your definition of holistic therapy?
So I like to feel into the two ways that we could like spell holistic. One with the H, HOLISTIC.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is natural. It's utilizing resources from nature. It's also, you know, you can use it in combination with allopathic medicine, but it's really going deeper and not just suppressing symptoms and doing just management, but it's going really deep into the core and the roots. And that brings me to the other way you could spell it, which is WH. So like a holistic view.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and that to me is like, we got to look at the mind. We got to look at our emotions. We got to look at the body, the physicality. We got to look at like relationships. We got to look at the environment. We got to look at systemic, cultural, your diet, nutrition. So to me, it's a wraparound full approach. It goes, it starts at the surface. You know, it's a big deal to manage symptoms. We got to start there.
Right.
So that people are not in the fight or flight mode, that they can, you know, if you need to suppress some symptoms right now, that's okay. But ultimately we want to keep working with the client to go deeper and deeper and then wrap around them and really have it be like a full lifestyle approach.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So have you ever done a different type of therapy, like therapeutic model, like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectal behavioral therapy, now or in the past?
Yeah. I mean, really in school, like when you're getting your bachelor's and especially your master's, and then depending on where your placement is for your internship, depending on the place where your placement's at, they're going to be utilizing a lot of different modalities and interventions. So for me personally, yeah, the CBT, that was one of the like, I think it's because I came from that holistic approach even before I got my bachelor's. So I already came with that mindset that when CBT showed up, it was like, oh, like affirmations and how our mind and body are connected. You know, what we think is going to be what we feel. What we feel is going to influence our thoughts. And so like, yeah, that I've definitely worked in that field. You could say I still do. I don't really use a lot of labels and titles in this day and age, but I've definitely worked in those fields with addiction and with sexual assault survivors. Those were the two really strong main areas that my focus were on. And even, you know, the blend of how really almost all disease has a stress response, and it comes from trauma, and trauma from varying different degrees. So as far as DBT, I haven't personally done that. It's funny because, you know, I come from shamanic training as well, and a lot of different more earth-based and even tribal and indigenous wisdom training. And we use drums and rattles and then even singing bowls. So you could call that music therapy, but it goes deeper. And then you later find out that with certain therapies, what they're doing is moving the energy from the left and right hemispheres to create a wholeness, like a circuit, so that things don't get trapped and lodged in different parts of that fight, flight, and freeze response mode. And so like tapping, emotional freedom technique, which is tapping, moving the energy. There's styles from many different, even allopathic approaches to therapy in medicine, but I was already doing it with different things from that holistic perspective. And then when I read about it, I was like, oh, this all kind of ties together. It's just different. Yeah. So I don't know if I really answered your question, because now in 2020, where I'm at, I've completely stepped away from the allopathic framework, and I work very much holistically, and I don't really use a lot of diagnostics or titles, or even like, I don't lock myself into very specific intervention approaches. I really look at each individual in person and what their needs are, and even what their needs are in the moment, because that's always unraveling as well. So I'm very eclectic, and I use a lot of different modalities.
You actually answered 2 questions of mine, which was the one that I just asked. And then I was also going to say, are there any like ideas or philosophies that you use from the other therapeutic models that you incorporate into your practice today? So
so many. I was trained from the National Acupuncture Detoxification Organization, and became a specialist. So I was doing the NADA ear acupuncture. That corresponds to a lot, like 80% of the whole body, including emotions, not just physicality, and mind, like addictions and stuff. Again, the shamanic journeying, meditation, relaxation, a lot to do with how to open ourselves up to really understanding that mind-body connection in all of its forms, and how our behaviors and actions are very much connected to all of this, and even the relationships that we draw to us. I've been trained and certified in all of those, even what you would call like esoteric and energy medicine. I don't use what you would call Reiki, even though I went through the level 3 training, because over 20 years of doing this kind of stuff professionally with myself, you really develop a relationship with your own mind, body, spirit, or if you don't like the word spirit, if that's too like esoteric, you can say energy. We know we're made up of energy. You could say your essence. So, through working with this, I become kind of a channel and a conduit for energy to flow through me in my own very unique personal way. So I don't ascribe to like, the trainings were helpful because it gave you like a framework, a baseline, but eventually you're going to build this relationship with yourself. And to me, like all things, you're going to make it your own. It's going to become a really beautiful practice, like not everybody who does CBT is going to do it the same way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. So I know that you just mentioned sort of how you kind of become sort of a vessel for each one of your clients, and you kind of gauge what they need based on like your, experience and everything like that. So my last question was going to be, what kind of clients work best for your therapeutic model? And like you just said, you don't like to stick to diagnosis or anything like that. So just describe for me maybe your ideal client for what you practice.
Yeah. I will describe that as best as I can, but I will also say, because I do trust. You know, I do feel that there's more going on that brings the right people to me. And those people often, the reason why we're such a good match is because there's a correlation, like things I went through in my own life, you know, like a lot of times I've been there, you know, it's always different, you know, everybody's going to experience things differently, but it's like how you practice what you preach, so that the integrity can really be there. And it's not so much like, I specialize in this, you know, come to me for this.
Right.
It's really like more personal and fluid. And it says, I'm human. I've been through all sorts of my trials and will until the day I die. And that humbleness and honesty about my humanity is really, I think, what people can relate to and how they find me. And I will say 90% of my client base, if not even more than that, comes from word of mouth. So it's not marketing or anything. It's really like someone says, oh my gosh, this person, like you got to call her, right? And then if we're a good fit and we just work together. But and my youngest clients can be anyone from 5 years of age, which is a lot of fun.
Aww.
And the real thing with that is some people would be surprised, but like being diagnosed or people trying to diagnose and parents kind of wondering if there's another way with like ADD and ADHD. So children that have been struggling with that, and if parents are looking for more of a holistic approach to help their child. And then of course, you know, trauma too, but, and then my oldest client, well, right now, not, but I will say, you know, I've worked with people into their 80s. So, wow. You know, that's a huge range. And then it goes from like, not just individuals, but because of that holistic, you know, a lot of times I end up working with the family dynamics, and I work in relationships, and I work with parent and child, you know, yeah, so it's really multifaceted. But right now, in November of 2020, the majority of people who are finding me because they've been sensitive, they've been attuned to phenomenon that might be considered more esoteric, or it's not mainstream publicized. People are like, I'm feeling my intuition, there's things coming up. And to me, the overall theme are people are realizing you can trust yourself, you know, like that self-love and that coming home to yourself in deeper and deeper ways, mind, emotion, body, energy, and like activating parts of themselves that I want to say most of them have always known that they've had, but they strayed somewhere, or they let the world tell them they were crazy, or, you know, somehow they stopped believing in themselves and growing and taking care of themselves. And so it's funny because a lot of clients are like wanting to really go deeper into their healing. So we gotta dig deep into the problems and the pain, but there's also this really beautiful awakening of their, the channels in their mind, body, and energy field, and like coming more alive and feeling more vibrant. And again, like their intuitiveness is going to really start to spark too. And with all that comes that ability to say, I can trust myself.
Right.
And I'm safe. Like so often we think with the victim mentality, which is so real, and we've all been victimized. We've all fallen into that group of, that world, right? Of perpetrator, like there's something attacking, victim, there's someone being hurt or something, and even the rescuer falls into that, right? If you're constantly in that, they call it the triangle of disempowerment, but if you're always caught up in that space of something's wrong, someone's doing something to somebody, someone needs saving, that's an addiction, and it's so embedded in our culture. And to really go into this other space, like, it feels like I want to say, like, take a little bit more responsibility, become more sovereign, activate your power, call those broken off parts of yourself back home to yourself. Create a way to trust and know that you can be safe. This isn't just airy fairy superficial. Like, I know in a world that feels really unsafe, there's something more happening on an individual, also collective, but on the individual level. The more we come home to ourselves and activate all of these facets, the more we can be like, oh my gosh, I'm not helpless. I'm not hopeless. I'm powerful. I'm creative. Right. What I think and feel and do and believe in creates an outward expression, a reality. There's this reciprocal dance between me and life. We're not separate. We're co-creative. And yeah, it just excites me because it's really empowering, and the sky's the limit. It just is infinite how deep and far you can go in this field.
Yeah. So like what you were saying, most of your clients, you feel, are more drawn to you because in some way you both have experienced the same thing.
Similar.
And yeah, or at least similar. So that's like trauma victims, sexual abuse survivors, and a lot of like family dynamic issues and hereditary issues.
It's all connected, isn't it? There's so much.
It is. Yeah, it's a large umbrella.
Yeah. And really, even beyond all of that, regardless of what you have experienced, again, it's almost like that something's missing, and I know there's more, and I want to explore that, and I want to come home to myself and come home to myself. Like, notice how I bring my hand to my heart. You know, so often we're so caught up in the head, and we believe that we're our thoughts all the time, and we're so caught in this loop of information and
right
and stimuli and head and thinking that we don't come into our body. We don't feel our breath. We don't feel the blood running through our body. We don't know how we really feel about things. We're kind of like dragging our body through this life, not even asking if the body, how it feels, right? And so it's definitely connected to trauma, because in trauma, you disassociate, you leave your body because it's too painful to be in your body. But
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, but it's not just
That's true.
Because trauma, so often people go to those really extreme things like the sexual abuse, physical abuse. Like, so often people go to that, and really it's like there's probably not a human on the planet that hasn't experienced trauma, and it's so varying degrees. And then we have societal trauma, cultural trauma, systemic trauma. We have the planet Earth has trauma, our animals have trauma. It's just it's so there. And so without getting caught up on, like, I specialize in just this type of trauma, that's not true. Trauma is a part of all of our lives.
Right.
And my approach is, I don't run from pain. I don't run from it. We have to face it. But I understand that with some people, we have to do baby steps, right? Because the point in dealing with the pain and the trauma and the fears is to stay in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't push someone to the edge, right? If you're afraid of heights, like, come on, and like push them, like that would re-traumatize them.
Right.
So there's a muscle that gets built, and you hold their hand and you do little by little. And every client is going to be different. But again, it's so beautiful because when you face it and you realize pain in all of its multifacets are a part of our everyday life, like even being birthed into the world was through pain. You know, at some point we have to stop pretending that pain isn't, like, we're not supposed to feel pain. Like, how many people think I should always be happy? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And the secret ingredient, which I found, it's, you know, who knows if it's, you know, universally true, but that secret ingredient is, let's be honest about how we feel in the moment. Let's turn towards it. Stop thinking we need to feel or do or be or look or have something different.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are in a really safe, loving environment and you have a safe, loving person that's facilitating this, you can really go quite far and deep and move past that triangle of disempowerment that I talked about. Like, there is a place, and it seems almost like, really, we can get past someone's hurting somebody, you know, so there's the perpetrator and victim, and now someone has to come in to save. Like, that's so mind-boggling to think, because that's so much a part of how our world works. Like, how is that even possible? But what I found is, even when you catch yourself in that paradigm and you step back, there is another aliveness that you could call like happiness. Like, you can, and this is just personal experience. I'm not here to like persuade anybody. If anything, like, ask yourself and check in with yourself. But there's a place where you can be what you would call happy, even in the midst of anger, even in the midst of sadness and grieving, even in the midst of disease and illness. It's happiness isn't so much that, like, what we portray, right, in the media of like blissed out, ecstatic, like happy.
Yeah, energetic, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like, I can be really deeply sad. I can be really deeply afraid. I can be really deeply angry. Mm-hmm. And there's still something inside of me that I can tap into. That's okay.
You know, that's actually funny, and like, this doesn't have to be on the like recording or whatever, but I just want to make a comment about this.
I would leave it, because to me the best interviews are fluid, that we share with each other.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But I started doing dialectal behavioral therapy, and it actually talks a lot about a lot of things. It calls it walking the middle path, where you realize things can be all at once. They can be, you know, multi-dimensional. You can be happy and sad. You can be sad and still grateful. And, you know,
and
like,
how much in our world are we taught, like, even in what you call the spiritual community, there's so much like bypassing. Mm-hmm. There's so much in mental health, spirituality, all of it, science, that says, you, like, how many times have you seen on a social media, like, you can't be in fear and love at the same time?
Right. Not true. Not true.
Not true for me. I've challenged it, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to how beautiful, Kara, it goes back to that holistic with a W. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's all, right? When we no longer, like, when you think of like repressing, suppressing, saying, you know, can't, no, won't, don't. And there's times in your life you have to get yourself back in safety. And that's okay. Like, our no's are sacred, right? Just like our yeses. But if inside, like, once you're safe and there's no one that you have to say no to, like, if your energy field is still trapped in that suppression, repression, no, then it's cut off from its life force energy. Now the circuits that you are a part of they're not fluid, they can't move. And life is in constant motion, it's fluid, it's the new moment's being birthed and the old one died simultaneously, right? So we have to be fluid and flexible. And that requires us to stop saying no inside our body when we are safe and repressing things because it's too painful. And instead saying, okay, I'm safe right now. I have someone with me. I can do this, and I can start to open again. And I can start to feel. And that's when you realize, wow, it's not black and white, on or off, love or hate, love or fear. It really is. And I'm happy. And there's a part of me that's still grieving. I mean, anybody who's been caught up in deep grief, you know the guilt that they feel, like, oh my God, for a moment, I didn't think about my loved one that died. I'm happy. And then they get struck with that guilt because it's almost like we've been told somewhere, like subconsciously, that you got to pick one. You can't, if you're happy and you're grieving someone, like almost like that's a sin.
Right.
Right. And people feel so much guilt.
They do. Yeah.
It like breaks my heart just us talking about it. It's so unfair that we can't be all of ourselves, that we can't have all of it and have it be welcomed and accepted and natural.
Yeah, I agree. So, could you give me sort of like an overview of basically, like you were talking about your certifications, your master's degree, your bachelor's degree, everything.
Oh gosh, my credentials.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be a lot of typing.
I'll give you whatever shows up right now. So I got my bachelor's in clinical and holistic social work, and my master's in the same clinical holistic social work. And before that, during that, after that, I was certified in hypnosis. I don't think we talked about that one yet.
No, we haven't, not yet.
In hypnosis, it's funny because the training was really beautiful and instrumental. And then like after you go through all this and you're like, okay, now I can, I'm a certified hypnotherapist and I can, start bringing clients in. It was really funny because I kept finding I never wanted to be a one-stop shop. I never wanted someone to pay me, like some of the hypnotherapists, like a lot of money, right? A couple $100 or whatever. Like someone come in and like, I want to quit smoking and here's $250.
Right.
And it was like, no.
You can't.
Something deep inside me was like, that's not the hypnotherapist I can be and have integrity. Because one thing I know from personal experience is if you rip something that someone's using to cope, if you like yank that out, that desire, it's going to manifest in another way.
Oh.
And it could be more detrimental than the first one. Like there's reasons we do what we do, believe it or not. even self-sabotaging things that we do. They're like, sometimes those things are saving your life and you just don't know it yet. And that's a whole nother area. But to get back to your thing, I use my hypnosis with more of the meditation training. And so in meditation, that's just another whole broad topic, because even though I've been trained in many different forms of meditation and relaxation, I don't stick to any one subcategory or title, what kind of meditation, because my ability to work with the client, I just trust that whatever needs to show up is going to be what's best. We're building a relationship, in their belief systems and their religion or spirituality, or even if they're atheist,
Mm-hmm.
All of that's going to play a role in what shows up. So yeah, there's meditation, there's Reiki, there's energy medicine, there's shamanism, which is both contemporary, which is more of the holistic. It draws from many different indigenous cultures. Mm-hmm. And then I've specialized and done some stuff with like Peruvian and certain Native American subcategories. And then I don't know if anything else that I told you about the nada.
Acupuncture.
Yep, the acupuncture. Yeah.
That's a sufficient list. If you can't think of anything, if you can't think of anything else.
Emotional freedom technique.
Yeah.
I incorporate nature-based psychotherapy practices, and that's a huge passion of mine, taking people into the wilderness of their soul, into the wilderness of themselves, into the wilderness literally outside. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of work with nature-based practices. And then in the spirituality, where there's no religion, it's just honoring like where somebody holds faith, or whatever their culture or their beliefs feel comfortable for them to start to have more faith in the unseen realm. So yeah, there's just so much as far like certifications are funny because anyone can like kind of create a school and like a curriculum, and then they can certify you. It's not as accreditable as an accredited college, that is accredited in the field of like social work, like my bachelor's and master's. So those are obviously the big ones, mm-hmm. But all of the certifications, you could look at them as like a subcategory where, your continued education credits, like you have a passion to explore other realms. And mm-hmm. So you take these classes and then you get certified. But ultimately it's about, for me, not a piece of paper or a class, like check, now I'm certified in that. To me, I'm building a relationship with myself. And things that I have felt to be very helpful because I integrate and I incorporate them into my personal life, they become a part of me. It becomes more of like who I am and not something out here on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. And then in that, it also becomes unique because it's gonna, whatever it needs to move through you and however it worked through you is very different. And so it's really funny because it's the tools in my toolbox, if you will, are very eclectic, and anything that I use that comes up in therapy for another, I have a personal working relationship with them. So I love that. So it's not just, well, I read this in a book once.
Yeah.
Which I really like. And I feel like that gives me my roots. And again, it kind of sprouts from that integrity of like practicing what you preach. I always say,
yeah, more understanding. More understanding.
One of my mottos that I say is to anybody who's in the healthcare profession, the helping profession, is first and foremost, we are our first client. Always. Take care of you, do the work for you. Mm-hmm. And then you'll, like a magnet, people will be drawn to you because you're proof, you're proof of something.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does. But I believe that's all of the questions that I do have, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. But thank you very much for answering all of the questions and providing a lot of answers. It really helped me understand a lot more of how you practice, how you come up with your healing methods, and everything like that.
Kara, thank you so much. I just want to say that I've known you, has it been 3 years then?
I think, yep, 3 years, yeah.
Yeah, so just watching you blossom and bloom and just continue to be an advocate for yourself really brings home that space of we really are our first clients, and just really keep taking care of yourself, and then you're going to be that light and share that with others, and how you're getting your training to be that lighthouse in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't without learning how to spark that within yourself. And it's been so much fun and so nice to reconnect with you.
Thank you,
I love
Nicole.
you so much, and
Oh,
thank you. And I'm so glad that you're recording this, because so many people are curious about these questions that you're asking, even me. And so to be able to like share that with people, so they're like, oh, I didn't know that that's what Nicole did, or, you know.
right.
So I just want to thank you, because it's a gift. I feel like it goes beyond your classroom assignment. It's a gift in so many ways. So thank you.
It is. I will definitely be sending you this recording, but I'm going to
Awesome.
go ahead and stop it really quick. You don't have to hang up or anything. Let's see. Where is it? I'm so new to Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom was until I